I'm sure you've heard the stories about us. The gratuitous lies being fed throughout the galaxy. The tragedy of the Emperor's son. The Astartes that had lost their minds. The fall of the Third Legion. How boring that tale sounds. How insignificant. We're so much bigger than that story. I should try to tell you the truth of what had happened. The birth of our Legion. The triumph of my father. My eyes have seen more than 1,000 of your lifetimes. Feelings of pleasure beyond your understanding. I do realize your faults. Your mind is still trapped, chained to your sense of reality, hiding from the ocean of the gods that surround you. You are too lost in your rituals. You can never glimpse into my world. But I shall try to tell you in ways that even you can understand. To see what I have seen. I have split the fabric of the universe, peered into the throne of God. I have felt it. I am the son of it. I will achieve perfection. Our Legion was founded during the Unification Wars. We were nobles from the royal houses of Europa, giving at birth to the Imperium for our fathers' old feuds against the Emperor, indentured servants to be used in war, marching with their brothers until death. With our nobility and proper upbringing, we were the most intelligent of the Emperor's tools, striking our enemies with precision. As time passed, the Legion grew, as did our nobility. Our bloodline was orchestrated to be the finest of warriors, warriors of intelligence, strategy, tactics, beauty, with all embracing the art of war. We represented the regal might of the Imperium. We were the example for the rest, a symbol of success for all to bear witness. The citizens would cheer for us as we passed. There was no final Legion. Our bodies were sculpted into warriors of pure beauty. Our methods of war were art. Make no mistake, we were loved by the Emperor. We were his finest Legion. We fought alongside the Emperor through the endless wars throughout the galaxy. Too many of my brothers gave their lives to protect the Emperor, sacrificing their own destiny to save his. Lives that should never have been forfeited. Our Legion had served the Emperor of mankind. We were the heroes of battle. The Emperor showed the Legion his gratitude. For the Third Legion's sacrifice, we had been given a name by the people. We were the Emperor's children. Our ability to shed blood on the battlefield was not our only gift. We were used by the Emperor to carry out diplomatic missions. Whichever task we're needed for, we accomplished with the grace of a king. Our Legion was crippled, however. None from our actions, but from the fates themselves. Our Legion's gene stock on Terra had been tainted by a viral outbreak to further our woes, stunting our ability to produce more recruits. The wars raged on. The bloodshed never ceased. Without new recruits, we were crippled, unable to produce more warriors. All seemed lost for our Legion, until my father was found. The story of Fulgrim began on the planet of Kimos, a bleak wasteland of a world. It was a mining planet from the old times, the thick nebular dust permanently drifting throughout the air, blocking the nearest star from its light. Kimos was isolated from the worlds of man. Great warp storms plagued the skies. The humans that lived on the wretched planet were unable to trade, unable to keep up with the food supplies for its people. Resources were rationed. Life was work. Work every hour of every day. Either hard labor or death. There was no art, no innovations, only survival and pain. Until the day happened when the child was found by the planetary police force, the caretakers. Seeing the child shocked the mortals. They'd never seen anything like it. In such a dark world, the child was perfect. The caretakers returned the child to the leaders of the fortress factory. They begged the executives to spare the child's life, as orphans were usually put to death for the good of the fortress. The executives agreed to the caretakers' request. The child was to be raised by one of the caretakers. My father was named by the Kimosian people after an ancient deity. Fulgrim was his name. His childhood was working in the vapor mines. His skills quickly flourished in the harsh environment. Fulgrim was able to achieve what most adults could. He was able to take the technology of the past and build new tools. He had a brilliant mind, innovated with such technical appreciation for all things. By the age of 15 Terran years, my father had risen through the ranks of Kimos to become an executive of the fortress factories of Calyx. He has always been an extraordinary leader. Even from that age, he was able to unite the lost fortress factories and share the new fruits of technology. The Death World had finally begun to prosper. Mining production had soared to new heights. Food quantities had vastly improved, and the technology kept advancing. Only one man had resurfaced the planet itself. Fulgrim had now become the leader of all Kimos. As society pushed forward, Fulgrim introduced the arts to the people. Human life had sacrificed these rituals long ago. My father brought culture and art back to the people of this once dying world. Soon after the world ended its isolation, from the dark, clouded skies, a flight of Stormbird dropships flew down to the planet's surface. The ships were heavily armored, carrying the Imperial Aquila. The caretakers surrounded the landing zone, ready to attack the foreign invaders. As the men began to debark the ship, Fulgrim told his men to stand down. One of the steel warriors stepped forward. He was a shining figure wrapped in golden armor. The instinct could not be defied. He knew this was no mere mortal, and he was a benevolent king. Without hesitation, my father bent his knee to the Emperor, swearing his allegiance. I know what you're thinking. The weakness my father showed, dirtying his knees as you do daily, praying to a monster that had no care for the universe, only his own greed. The Emperor brought Fulgrim back to Terra, explained to him his conquest to the galaxy to be unified under his banner alone. The Emperor introduced Fulgrim to meet the 3rd Legion of Space Marines, There were only 200 of the Astartes left. He had learned of the Legion's corrupted gene seed and were unable to replenish their numbers. Fulgrim addressed the 200 Astartes. My father had so many gifts. He was the most divine speaker. He delivered a speech of pure beauty and heart, so inspiring to the Imperial conquest that the Emperor decided to elect Fulgrim as its leader and named the Third Legion the Emperor's Children. Fulgrim was a devout leader, bringing the same ideals from his past to the newly formed Legion. The Emperor's Children were to be the best at all. They were of nobility and had to behave as such. Fulgrim sought perfection in all things, in culture, civilization, and war. The appearance of the Legion was to be unmatched, in personal beauty and the armor they wore. Purple and gold ships with artisan details in every piece of armor plating. We were the finest of all the Emperor's warriors. During my father's time on Terra, he had met with his brothers, the other Primarchs of the Emperor. A bond formed between two of the great warriors. Fulgrim formed a connection of his brother, Varys Manus. Varys was Primarch of the mighty Iron Hands. The two shared bonds for their love of science and alchemy. Both were gifted artisans. The two Primarchs were competitive. Varys and Fulgrim competed in a challenge. Who could forge the greatest weapon? After 3 months, Fulgrim had forged a Warhammer unlike anything seen before. He named it Forgebreaker, having the ability to destroy a mountain with a single blow. Varys Manus created a golden sword, the Fire Blade, that glowed and never lost its fire. After comparing the two weapons, both Primarchs had agreed. The weapons they crafted were of equal quality. The two had swapped weapons as a sign of their friendship. Jealousy was already ripe within the Primarchs. Many of the other legions resented our ways. We were the best of them. Jealousy plagued their minds. The Great Crusade had begun. My father and his legion were eager for war. The Emperor placed the Third Legion under the command of the Primarch Horus. The Emperor's children were to fight alongside the Lunar Wolves. Horus and Fulgrim grew close during the Great Crusade, as Fulgrim and his legion learned new tactics in battle from his brother. As the decades continued, more ranks were recruited from both Terra and Chemos for the Third Legion. As the Emperor's children swelled in size, the old fortress monastery on Chemos that my father once governed became the homeworld of the Third Legion. They were set off on their own conquest for the Emperor. More battles fought, more worlds conquered, leading my father and the Legion to the Xenos world of Lairn. Fulgrim and his Third Legion arrived to the water planet, meeting a serpentine species known as the Lair. Advanced creatures of the cosmos, much of their technology even being equal to that of the Imperium. It was a planet full of resources to be taken. The apothecarian of the Third Legion, Fabius Bile, was particularly interested in the planet's hidden resources. He was a man dedicated to our rise in power, unafraid to ask the questions banned by the Imperium. Native creatures of Lair had bizarre motives. They seemed to be guided through excess, pleasure, and pain. Massive temples of debauchery, none of which mattered. They had refused to kneel to Fulgrim or the Imperium, and suffered the fate they deserved. The hostile natives were quickly exterminated by the Legion. As the creatures were expunged, Fulgrim came upon a sword in the Temple of Lair. One of the creatures defended it heavily. Upon gazing at the sword, it was of magnificence. He had taken the blade of Lair as his own. I know the stories. My father was never corrupted. The sword was only a view into the hidden realm. The realm the Emperor locked away from his sons. That was the first betrayal of the Emperor, keeping these secrets kept away. My father had seen what was behind the veil. He only wanted the betterment for his legion. The sword was fated to be Fulgrim's. It was the vessel of a great power unknown to him at the time. It was the physical power of the god known as Slanesh. After the planet was liberated by the Third Legion, the Iron Hands had sent a distress call to Fulgrim. They were under attack from a nomadic fleet. Fulgrim answered his brother Ferrus Manus' call and sent his fleet to assist. They were sent into a trap. Outnumbered by the enemies known as the Diasporics, a massive fleet naval battle ensued, with my father's personal gunship, the Firebird, coming under heavy fire. Ferrus Manus sent his ship to save Fulgrim. It was an insult to us all. We were sent to help our brother, not to be used as bait then saved. My father was beyond anger. He would never forgive the traitorous ways of his brother again. As time passed, Fulgrim had received a message to meet with the renowned Ashiani Fezra Aldud Altran, an Eldar with an honorable reputation at the time. Upon meeting him, the Xeno told Fulgrim that his brother and friend, Horus, had betrayed the Emperor. Fulgrim became enraged. How dare this filthy Xeno try and split the Imperium? They were desperate to conquer our species. Fulgrim attacked the Eldar, barely escaping the planet. He then used our fleet and sent a message they would not forget. We virus-bombed several of their maiden worlds. I had lost count over the years. They were always such a treacherous race. Fulgrim went to meet with his brother, tell him the meeting with the Eldari. Upon meeting Horus, it had all been true. Horus had seen the true treachery of the Emperor's ways. We were expendable. The Emperor's goals limited ours. Horus showed Fulgrim the ways of the Chaos Gods, the true power that was hidden from them by the Emperor. Chaos was true perfection, beyond anything one can achieve in the mortal realm. My father had seen the path of glory. Horus asked that he seek his brother Ferrus Manus and try to convince him to join the true path. Fulgrim did meet with his brother. He did try to convince him to join with the traitor legions against the Imperium. He showed Ferrus what he could achieve if he were unlocked from his cage. But Ferrus was too stubborn, too loyal, too weak. Fulgrim attacked Ferrus for his betrayal. His dishonor was too great. Fulgrim was barely able to escape the ship. He commanded his fleet to fire upon the Iron Hands as they escaped. The brotherhood the two Primarchs once shared was now shattered. Fulgrim had spoken to his sons, showing us what was hidden for so long. we had achieved all there was to perfection. Our shackles were breaking. Before the final days of the Great Crusade, the Remembrancer aboard Fulgrim's battle barge, Pride of the Emperor, had come to perform for the Legion. Kinska was a musician unlike any other. She performed the symphony that she had heard from the Lair Temple. The song split the world between the void and the warp. The powers of Slaanesh flooded into the Legion. An orgy of sensual hedonism, raw beauty, and passion of 1,000 lifetimes washed over us all. I sought to change my features to that of perfection. I became free. I see the way you look at me. A look of disgust, revulsion. How chained you are to your ways. My mutations have brought me closer to God. They are beyond the beauty of this mortal woman. The Battle of Istvan V, the slaughterhouse. How I long for those days. A war of true proportion. Horus has shown the Imperium his might, attacking the Loyalists with his bandit army. As the mighty battles raged on, Fulgrim set his eyes on his brother. Ferrus Manus mocked Fulgrim for siding with the traitor Horus. His pride would be wounded no more. The two warriors clashed, striking each other with godly blows. The powers of the Lair Blade flowed through Fulgrim, aiding him in combat, striking Ferrus and crushing him into submission. Ferrus Manus, Primarch of the Iron Hands, had been beaten. Lying wounded on the ground, Fulgrim stood over his brother, hesitating to deliver his killing blow. Fulgrim saw Ferrus reach for his fallen sword. Fulgrim's blade seemingly swung on its own volition. The demon blade sliced through the Primarch. His head decapitated. Ferrus Manus lay dead by his own brother. It was then that my father accepted the true fate of chaos. He gave himself to the greater demon, accepting the gifts of Slaanesh, pushing him closer to perfection. Fulgrim was freed from his mortal beauty. He gave his flesh to the god Slaanesh. In exchange, Fulgrim had mutated his body, becoming a true being of perfection. Fulgrim had emerged as the Demon Prince. The War Master saw the power of his brother growing. He too was jealous of his gifts. Fulgrim had outgrown his brother's commands. The siege of Terra had begun. Our legion was ordered to obey and die at will. We did not succumb to these orders. We were above this pettiness. Our siege was with the people of Terra itself. Our legion harvested so many of them. Endless amounts of souls to be used for our pleasure, and pleasure was had by us all. I had learned the beauty of torture. The screams of agony filled my blood with such passion. With the defeat of Horus and his traitor legions, we abandoned that war. Our homeworld of Chemos was destroyed by the Imperium. We left the confines of human space, seeking our own path of glory. We journeyed into the Eye of Terror. seeking more supplies of slaves for our own pleasure. Our legions were fragmented, each forging their own desires for pleasure. The individual can now seek their own path of glory, not held down by the weight of the Imperium. My father was now a true demigod. He had served Slaanesh well and was praised with gifts. The search for perfection would not end for Fulgrim. He journeyed alone long ago, continuing his pursuit of godliness. The lies of the Imperium will continue to spread. But now you know the truth. Fulgrim is beyond the Imperium, beyond the destiny of the Emperor. He is perfection. He loves his children, and I him. The beauty I have seen since our purification, the extreme sensations I have inflicted on your kind, so much joy in your agony, so much more to be had. Do you see now, Guardsman? My father was no savage, corrupted by chaos. He embraced the powers of the warp. He only sought to better that which your god could never provide. You should consider yourself lucky. You have it easy compared to the rest. Do you see this blade? I call it the Blade of Decadence. It was given to me by my father, used to cure the sickness of mediocrity. You have the honor to join in its many notches. Perhaps then you will be invited to your god's kingdom in purgatory. There is no new knowledge to be extracted from my telling. This confession has meant nothing. As I place my blade against your throat, I shall say the words you wish to hear.